guys, coming at you with another episode of the Tampa Bay Real Producers Podcast. This, of course, is the podcast for real producers, by real producers, and with none other than real producers. So we get to hang out today with Ashley Smith. Ashley, it's a pleasure to have you on the show.
Thank you.
Yeah, we've met, I guess it was a year and a half ago, maybe, where we had you featured as a rising star in one of the issues of Tampa Bay Real Producers. You guys can check that out on our website. You'll see all of our past issues on there. And Ashley, we got to dive into your story a little bit, which we're going to do more on this podcast. And I thought it was a very inspirational story. So I'm excited to tell more in the audience who might not know you yet, a little bit more about your story, how you got to be a top producer, and what you're building now. So we'll dive into that. But
okay.
I think we usually start with just your background. Yeah. We'll start a little bit there. If you grew up in this area, if not, what brought you to Tampa, and how eventually you got yourself started in real estate. So let's start there.
So so since we met, I got married. So my last name is Glenn now.
Ashley Glenn.
It's Ashley Glenn.
Drop the Smith, huh?
Yeah. But yeah, I'm a Florida
a little bit easier
native.
to search because there's, imagine the last name Smith. There's endless amounts. Yes.
Endless. And it's just, I got in a little bit of trouble in high school with that last name because I got a notice for Saturday school and I was like, what? Like, I was such a good kid. I never got in trouble. So I'm like marched down to the principal's office and there were 3 Ashley Smiths in our high school that they didn't even realize it. So then they had to put our middle initials in there to keep us separated.
That's right. These other troublesome Ashley Smiths are getting you all railroaded, huh?
Right. But yeah, so I'm a native. I was born and raised in Clearwater. Grew up there and just, went to Florida State for college, and then came back here, and I've been here ever since. I love it.
Very cool. So you went to FSU, graduated as a Seminole, I take it, right?
Yes.
And then when you did graduate, what was your major at school?
Business.
You were? Okay. Mm-hmm. So you had that acumen for business, right, throughout the school years.
Yeah.
And then did you get into real estate right away, or how did that journey work?
So it took me a little while. My interest started in about 2006. Mm-hmm. And then the market crashed in 2008. And so then I was like, maybe now is not a great time to dive in. So I kind of just worked in hospitality for a while. And then actually was working right around the corner from here at Seasons 52.
Okay. And
I was getting my license, and just like a chain of events took place, and I ended up at a new home builder. So, so that was really cool. I got some experience there, got my feet wet. And I really enjoyed it. I learned the sales process. I learned so much about the build process, and then I decided to go out on my own. So I did that for about 5 years, and then I've been in general real estate for the last 3.
And what year did you get officially licensed?
2015.
Oh, well, okay. So you kind of delayed it during all those challenging market seasons, right?
Yeah.
From 08 through. And then you hooked up with the builder around that same time?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep. So my first introduction into real estate was working for a builder. Mm-hmm. And like I said, I loved it. I mean, it was great. I learned so much in that period of time that I think would have taken me a lot longer to learn on my own.
Yep.
So I definitely encourage people, if they're getting into real estate, I definitely would say either join a team that's already had some success or go into new construction, because you do have that support. Whereas when you just go in, you learn so much in real estate school, but it doesn't really apply to real life.
For sure.
So I would say, if you want to go on the general side of it, where you can kind of sell anything anywhere, I would say join a team that is going to support you and give you those tools.
Makes sense. And are you with a team now, or aren't you in the process of building your own?
Yeah. So actually I'm building my own team, SG Home Collection. I'm with Compass. And we're just a group of all ladies right now, but that's not by design. It's just kind of
Are men allowed?
Yeah, okay. Men are allowed, boys are allowed. But yeah, we are just working together to kind of help build each other up. My role is definitely just to give guidance and give people the foundation that they need to get started and be successful in real estate. And then we just support each other through if I need help with a showing or an open house or whatever,
Yeah.
they're there for me and I'm there for them, vice versa. So
Now, when we met, I don't think you were with Compass yet. Is that true?
correct.
Yeah, you were with a different, and you weren't
Yes.
yet building a team either. I don't
Correct.
think at
Yeah,
the time.
no. No, I was just
you
a
were
single
shining
agent.
as a solo agent. That's just
Yeah.
why you came on our radar. Really, was as a rising star. So those of you who might not know, a rising star is generally somebody who is in their first 5 years, right, of being licensed. So I think we might have featured you in like 2020.
Yeah.
Which you were right on the verge there of about your 5th year of being licensed. And there's somebody who either has already cracked the top 500, which I believe you had, or was right on the verge of that. And Ashley obviously was showing that success. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but I remember when we did your initial interview, there was a backstory there with, weren't you homeless for a little while?
Yeah, so for a little while, when I was younger, we definitely, went through some challenging times. So I grew up with my mom and my grandparents.
Yeah.
And so my grandfather, who was the primary breadwinner, got sick with cancer and he ended up passing away. So dealing with that. And then right after that, we lost our house. So
How old were you?
I was 7.
Okay.
So so it was just like a really challenging time.
Imagine.
And thankfully, my mom and my family was like, really supportive. So, I mean, we never really lived on the streets. I don't want to, make it seem like that, but we didn't have anywhere to live. So we lived in a hotel for a little while. We lived, with family members, here and there. And so that really, I think, is where I started to understand real estate and the importance of home ownership.
Yeah.
And kind of just like I started to, think about those kind of things. And then as I got older, I just had this mission that, I didn't want anybody else to have to go through that kind of thing. So that's where a lot of my passion comes from when it comes to helping people into home ownership, because, it's definitely attainable. If you can afford rent, you can afford to own a home. It just, you have to kind of prioritize the importance of home ownership. I think a lot of, especially first-time buyers, get caught up in like, I want my dream home as their first home. And that's not always going to be attainable.
Right.
But I think if you have it in mind,
Some people are a little unrealistic about that?
just
You have to educate the buyers a little bit on
just a little.
why there's a stepping stone to this process.
Yeah, I blame HGTV, but
Right.
But so I think that if you keep in mind that it's an investment in your future, and your future goals, you can use it as a stepping stone. I think that kind of realigns your thinking into, okay, this is not my forever home, but this is a way for me to start building some wealth and to get to that next step, or maybe that, next step, it could be, you could be 2 or 3 houses in. I think too, a lot of people are in the mindset, like, I buy a house and that's my house forever.
Right.
And it's just like, that's just
Doesn't have
not
to be
the
that way.
case. On average, people move like in the first 5 years of owning a home. So, I mean, if you think about it that way, you could potentially own 3-4 homes in your lifetime.
Totally.
So I think it's really important to look at it as an investment and a way to build wealth.
Makes sense. Now, I think I also remember us talking about how you had a real focus on the first-time home buyer.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's still a big fit, with your current team and what you guys preach, but I remember there being an inspirational side of that story because of what you just described and going through some tougher times when you were younger, and then really bringing that purpose behind why you were trying to help people become a first-time home buyer, and the peace of mind that brings, the assurance, I think, for a lot of people that brings, the level of confidence I think it also brings when you can call yourself a homeowner versus renter. And I think a lot of people underestimate the power in that, right?
Yeah.
Because there really is a lot of power when you buy that first home. I remember even my own first condo, like you just feel like, oh, I'm an adult now,
Yeah.
It's a different feeling altogether. So I agree with that. Did you did you come from a bigger family? Did you have a lot of brothers and sisters during those years?
It's tricky. So I come from not a very large family on my mom's side. So I'm my mom's only child, but my father, he has two other kids. He got married after I was born, and he has two boys.
Okay.
That
Are you
we
close
didn't
with
really.
them?
Oh yeah, we're really close, and we didn't grow up in even the same state. They grew up in New York.
Okay.
I grew up here, but we spent a lot of summers together, and I mean, even now we're still really close. So it's great because I didn't have that sibling like connection in my own household, but thankfully they're there. And
When you were going through those tough times, was that just you and your mom?
Yeah. So me, my mom, and my grandmother actually.
Okay.
Yeah. So it definitely shaped me. I mean, nobody's childhood is perfect, and I think it definitely allowed me to think outside of myself, because I think as a kid you're just so self-oriented because that's all you really know is
Absolutely.
like your perspective. But when you go through things, I think it allows you to think about the bigger picture. And so I think that also like drove my success, or like want for success, from a young age.
Makes sense. When do you remember kind of getting this desire for wanting to be involved in business, whether it was real estate or just business, period? You said you majored in business.
Yeah,
So when did that become an interest?
I honestly don't know, but I remember like even when I was like probably like 10 or so, I used to sketch a lot. Initially I wanted to be like a fashion designer. I was going to move to New York City. I was going to do the whole thing. And I used to sketch all the time and like create these outfits. And my grandmother, she used to sew, and she was like big. Like, I mean, she would make me outfits, me and my cousin, she would make us like matching outfits, and she would just always make our clothes, and she would let me help her, and we would go to the fabric store and stuff like that together. And so that's kind of where that started. And then as I got older, I just kind of realized like, I like clothes, but I didn't really have that, like, I didn't want to really be in the business side of that. Mm-hmm. And so in high school, I went to a medical magnet high school, actually. I also thought I wanted to be a pediatrician. I was kind of all over the place. And so I did that. And then my senior year, we had clinicals.
Okay.
And we had to actually go out in the field. And that was where I realized that I was not cut out for medicine. So
sometimes you got to go through that to realize this is not my career choice.
Thank God I went through that in high school. I would have not wanted to invest all that time and money in college to figure that out later on. So thankfully, thank you to Palm Harbor University High School.
Gave you clarity on what not to do.
Yes.
That makes sense.
Yes. So they sent me down a different path. And so then I ended up going into business. And I loved it. I loved every aspect of it in college. And then, so when I got out, I actually did for a short time have my own online clothing store.
Okay. So
I did the e-commerce thing for about 4 years. And that was great. It taught me so much about entrepreneurship, because everybody thinks like, oh, I'm just going to go into business for myself and it's going to be awesome and I'm going to make my own hours and I'm going to be my own boss.
Yes. Like, little do they know. That's not exactly the experience of an entrepreneur.
Yeah, no. Right. I mean, as an entrepreneur, I feel like you work 10 times harder because you're everything. Right. You are everything to the business. And like when I was doing the online retail thing, it was like, I had to do the orders. I had to do the shipping. I had to do the accounting. It was just like endless list of things that I had to do because I couldn't afford to hire anybody. Right. So it was like, but I learned so much. And it was like, I always take like my failures as a lesson. Because the business did not, I didn't become a millionaire, but I learned like so much about myself and so much about my strengths, and what my weaknesses were. And then I kind of translated that into my real estate business. So, as a realtor, you're still an entrepreneur. But I do like the fact that I have the support of my broker. That was one of the things that I sought out. Like I need to have a broker that's going to support me in those areas where I don't have those strengths, because I'm one of those people, like, I will just, if it's not my strength or it's not my like interest, I will just push it off or ignore it. I'll just be like, okay, I'll get to it later. And I'll focus really hard on the things that I'm good at. but it's like, you need somebody to fill in those gaps.
Yeah.
So whether it's your broker, whether it's building a team or whatever, those are the things that I kind of took from that experience, my first experience into entrepreneurship, and translated here.
Now, we featured you, obviously, as a rising star because you got traction pretty quickly, right? Like, it didn't take you that long to be able to start to get results. And I think one of the things that a lot of agents struggle with is when they're new, like, what is their strategies going to be to help them get traction as quickly as possible? And you seem to really figure that out. Now, you already mentioned that you had some probably some benefits there through the new construction and the builder side of things. So maybe that was like that initial strategy that helped you. But is there anything else you can elaborate on that you feel like really helped you get off to a fast start in the business and, quickly become a rising star?
I think you just have to look at it as like your mission, your full-time job. Like, a lot of people go into it again for the flexibility and thinking like, that it's just going to come to them. I think a lot of people have the misconception that the business will just be there. And even year over year, you still have to go out and hunt for that business. You still have to go out and create that business. I mean, it's just, especially now, there's just so many realtors out there. So I think early on, the most important thing for me was to be organized, to have a CRM that I could, follow up with people in. That was one of the great things of working for the builder. Like, they kind of just already had that built in.
Yep.
So, if you don't have that from your broker or, from whatever employer you have, I would definitely say invest in a good CRM. I mean, even if it's just something to help you remember anniversaries, birthdays, the closing date of your clients, like things like that are really important because those clients will definitely be your biggest advocates. Even if they don't buy from you again, they will recommend you based on your service to them. So I even literally was just on the phone for an hour with one of my clients from like 4 years ago. And she just called me up and we were just chit chatting or whatever. And she invited me to her house for some party she's having. Nice. And she's like, bring your brochures and bring your stuff.
There you go.
Because I've got some people I want you to talk to. And I'm like, okay, great.
That's the dream client right there. That's what you want.
And she's in her forever home. She's totally happy there. But again, she's going to be the person that is going to tell her friends about me. And those are the best clients to have. Like, I love referral clients. When you get those cold call clients or those people that if you purchase leads or whatever, it's definitely great, but it's a different type of interaction than when you've already been talked up to, to that person.
No doubt.
It's like they come in already kind of trusting you, which is a huge thing because at the end of the day, we're salespeople, right? And so we don't always have the best reputation. And I think that, once they already get that part out of the way, they trust you, they want to work with you, then it like allows them to really get to the bottom of what they're looking for, what they need, what their goals are. Because sometimes it's like pulling teeth trying to get people to like really tell you what it is that they
to open
need.
Up, right?
Because they'll tell you what they want, but it's like
there's a difference.
Okay, there's a huge difference sometimes.
And that's a skill, really. Like that's what I think makes a great agent. Many times, a great agent is that ability to draw out the truth. The real information, not the facade stuff.
Yeah.
But what's really going to fulfill their needs, like you said. And for whatever reason, I think a lot of times people don't even necessarily know, what those needs are. Until you're able to, that's why I jokingly say a lot of times with agents, you're almost a psychologist as much as you are a sales professional. And it does take some work and some skills to really listen effectively, and ask poignant questions that are going to really get the information that you really need.
And I think a lot of that too, so like, back to newer agents and people getting started, definitely your CRM is super important and being able to follow through with that. Also listening, like that active listening and listening for the in between the lines, like, and I learned how to ask discovery questions really early on. So, it starts off as just a normal conversation, where are you from? Where are you moving to? Where are you moving from? Kind of getting a feel for their life situation, their lifestyle, what they like to do. Because Florida is there's so many little pockets within Tampa Bay that you can move to, right?
Sure.
And they all offer something a little bit different.
Yeah, you can find a niche for almost anybody.
Yeah,
Are they the beach bum, or they want to live in the city, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And we kind of have the best of both worlds. And even if they, do like the city activities, but they can't really afford to be right in the middle of things, there are these little pockets where, okay, yeah, they can afford it here. They can have a beautiful home, and then they're 30 minutes away from all the action.
Yep.
So, there's always something for everybody here. And that's what I love about this market. And I think that, being able to ask those discovery questions early on and getting them to feel comfortable enough with you to tell you is super important for being able to guide them in the right direction. Because the last thing you want to do is waste anyone's time, but especially your own, because you have multiple clients,
Sure.
and from their perspective, you're their agent and you're the only one that they're dealing with. But from your perspective, to be effective, you have to be able to manage multiple clients.
Yep.
So
and manage multiple personalities.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Hospitality taught me that. So if you're an agent out there and you're in hospitality, if you're in hospitality and you're looking to get into real estate, I feel like it's like it's Smooth transition. Because I dealt with so many different personality types when I was in hospitality.
I'm sure.
And I worked every different type of hospitality. I worked from like Hooters on up to like, wine restaurants and things like that.
Yeah.
It's kind of fancy places, but
it's a little bit of a different clientele.
Oh, yeah.
Just
Although
a little bit.
Hooters does serve Dom Perignon.
Oh, there you go. I've never had a Dom Perignon at Hooters before. I'll just be honest, but yeah, I guess some might. Some might.
Dusty in like a closet somewhere, but I know they have it. But yeah, so I just think that being able to actively listen and to get those discovery questions in early is really helpful.
So when you got into real estate and you said initially you started working with the builder and then you eventually, I guess, transitioned out of that, right? And started doing more traditional residential retail real estate. Did you find right away that like this, I just love this business, this is a niche for me, and you knew that this is going to be a permanent thing or a long-term thing, or did that come gradually over time?
I think I had already made my mind up about real estate, that was like what I wanted to do, but it was definitely a learning curve because it's just different. Like you're still selling real estate, but it's a very different structure and a lot more things can go wrong. Like when you work for a builder, they have a very specific contract and it's written for them and it's kind of written in their favor.
Yeah.
So you don't have as many loopholes or cancellation opportunities as you do with, the general retail market.
Makes sense.
So there was a lot more to kind of look out for. And so I had to learn that very quickly because inspections and ages of houses, like there's like, houses built in the 60s, 70s, those have a totally different set of problems when you're dealing with houses that are built for you right then, you know? So, so that was something and guiding my clients because it's my job to be able to help them navigate those pitfalls. And so, I learned that really quickly. Like, all right, you gotta every house is different too. One of the great things about working for a builder is like you learn a product and they might have like 20 different floor plans, but you learn that thing and that's it. Whereas like when you go out into the real world, there's like
a lot of different options.
So, and they all come with their own set of rules. So yeah, that was one of the things that I was like, whoa, this is different. But yeah, it didn't take long. Growing up here too, I was
Did you enjoy more just going through the retail process versus working with the builder, or did you like them both pretty much equally?
I like them both, and honestly, I still tend to sell more new construction, just because I feel like right now the resale market is just a little bit aggressive with their pricing. So my clients, especially because I do work with a lot of first-time buyers, they do tend to want the warranties that come with new construction. They tend to want the communities that come with new construction.
Makes sense.
So depending on what price point they're in, they tend to lean a little bit more towards new construction. If they have a bigger budget, then it's really not that big of a factor, but it just depends on who the client is.
So did you know from the get-go too that you wanted to eventually build a team, or did that change, that happen down the road?
That came about actually when I joined Compass. So I kind of had I guess the itch to do something, because, I'm always looking for a challenge, I guess. So when I went into general, that was a little bit of a shift, and that was great. I got that down. And then I was like, what's next? And so when Compass recruited me, they kind of, told me like, hey, I want you to start a team. And I was like, what? Like,
this is new.
And then I thought about it and I was like, okay, well, this seems like a great opportunity, because I had a lot of agents asking me like, how did you get started? And they would always reach out to me on like Instagram or Facebook and ask me like, basically how I was successful or what I was doing. And I was like, trying to answer these people individually is like so hard, because one, it's
while
like,
still running your business.
Yeah. And I feel like too,
and everybody loves free advice. That's for sure.
Yeah. Definitely. But also I feel like you only get like a little bit of the picture. Like I can answer you back in a couple of sentences, but that's not really a full view of like what it is that I'm doing. So I figured a better way to share what I know and what I've learned is to bring on agents that I can help build with.
Makes sense. Yeah. And so what do you look for when you're bringing on team members? Are there certain qualities, or have you identified yet like specifically what your criteria is?
So, I mean, the main things that I look for is somebody who is willing to put in the work. Because, how many people say, oh, I want to sell luxury real estate. And I'm like, okay, that's great.
I also want $1 million in my bank account today.
Right.
Yeah.
So, I think that I want those. I mean, I do tend to work with agents who are a little bit newer. That's kind of just by default, because I think they are looking to be with a team that's going to guide them. But I don't want somebody who's so green that they just have no concept of like what they really want to do, or what, they just have seen some things and they're like, oh yeah, that looks great. It looks easy. And it's like, real estate is not easy.
HGTV.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Netflix, selling Tampa, selling Sunset, all those shows. So I think like I want somebody who's driven, who has goals in mind, and who is gonna put in the work to get there. I've had agents come to me from different backgrounds, everywhere from like corporate America. I think those agents are great because they kind of understand business structure a little bit better. I've had people come to me from hospitality and other sales backgrounds, so that definitely helps. Any sales experience helps. But yeah, I just look for people who are team players and, want to learn and want to grow their business, because at the end of the day, this is a business and you have to put in the work to make it grow.
Tough to do that with people that are committed part-time, right?
Yes, it is. It's very hard. So, but I totally understand, because not everybody can just come in as a full-time agent. A lot of people have other financial responsibilities and things like that. So I totally get it. I will work with agents who are not full-time yet, but that definitely has to be their end goal, is to transition to full-time. And I find though that those people who can't invest in it full-time, their business, it takes a lot longer to get off the ground.
Totally. Yeah, it makes sense. That's a common thing we dive into actually on this podcast, is for people who did get off to a fast start, how did they get there? And there are some that will say, well, I had to start part-time and eventually got there. But most I was able to just dive right in, and being as full-time as you can, as quickly as you can, I think is really important, so that you can just be committed to it and focused on it and go through the learning curves that are eventually, inevitably going to happen for anybody. What is your process like, Ashley, now when you bring on a team member? Is it like, one interview, 2 interviews? Do you have a pretty ironed out process that you go through or put somebody through before they actually join the team? I think it's helpful for some people that are also building teams. It's always curious, the different strategies out there of how people go about that.
So a lot of it has been trial and error because, it's a new system that I've been putting in place. But I will say the most effective hiring process, I would say, has been at least 2 to 3 interviews, because I've had a great initial interview with someone before, and then before I could even fully get them on the team, there was like 8 million red flags.
Yeah.
It's like, whoa.
Some people are good at that first impression.
Yeah.
Maybe not so much the second or third.
We hit it off right away. Everything was great. And then I was like, whoa. So, I just, and it was more to do with like work ethic, but I will say, doing a couple interviews in different settings too. Like usually my first interview is over the phone or, via like, Zoom or something like that. And then definitely second interview face to face. And then a lot of times the third interview will be out doing something like doing a showing or doing an open house. Maybe I'll have them drop into an open house or something like that and just get a feel for how they talk to people, how they interact, where they are in that and that part of their career, because that actually allows me to understand, okay, where they might need a little bit more coaching and things like that.
Makes sense. Yeah, I think it's really smart to have them involved something live, as a real part of the business, whether that's an open house or even sitting in on a listing presentation or whatever the case may be. How many agents did you say you have now on the team?
So now we have 4.
Okay. And they're full-timers?
No, only one of them is full-time.
Okay.
All of them, the rest of them still kind of have stuff that they're transitioning out of. But yeah, they're getting close, I would say, to being full-time agents.
And do you have where's the vision take you as to where you want to see this go the rest of this year and beyond? Have you thought about that yet, about where you want to grow it to?
So right now, I think I'm just working on getting these agents up and running. And then I think maybe towards the last quarter of the year, I'll probably bring on some more agents. But I try not to bring on too many at one time because I'm still running my personal business as well. And I want to be able to dedicate, the time that it takes. I'm not one of those people that just like wants to have a team just to have a team or wants to say I have 25 agents on my team just to say that. It's really important to me that I offer value because my thing is I want to build a team of agents that's going to stick together, whereas there are some agents who will build a team and they'll charge 50% of the commission. You know what I mean? So they're collecting 50%, that agent gets 50%, and that gets old. As soon as that agent figures out what their, what the secret sauce is, they're going to go out on their own.
Sure.
And so my goal is I want to retain agents. So not that egregious on the commission split. And then I also want to be able to foster those relationships so that we can work together and, build our business together. Yeah,
that's huge, I think. And so, as you just said, like it's easy for someone who is working with a leader whose main goal is to get a good comp split, right?
Yeah.
If that's the motivation, I think that's going to play out pretty quickly in that process. But if there's some other element of added value, even if that's just a great tight relationship, a personal relationship in a culture that you're bringing to the table that they might not be able to replicate on their own somewhere else, that's what could retain them and keep them. I've said this before, but one of my mentors years ago taught me under this mentality of, do I really want to invest a ton of energy into training my people and then have them leave?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And he said to me, he goes, well, what's the alternative to not invest your energy into them and have them stay?
Yeah.
Right? I'm like, that's true. It doesn't make a lot of sense either, right? So I might as well give them my very best and making sure I can provide an environment where, they could leave if they ever wanted to, but they don't really want to leave because they continue to see the value there. So I think that makes a lot of sense. And I think it's also tricky, though, to balance, like you said, balancing the fact that you're still running your own business with now all these additional responsibilities of coaching and mentoring, your team. And so has that been a challenge for you as well, as figuring that balance out and not have it affect you?
Initially, I think I've kind of gotten the swing of it now, but definitely initially I was like not expecting to be like so distracted from my personal business because, I was getting agents set up and I was setting up, their business. And then I'm like, wait a minute, like I haven't done this or I haven't done that. So, so that was a little bit.
You don't want your business to tank, right? As
exactly,
a result. Yeah.
Because, that's one thing about this business is like you are constantly pouring into it, because the minute you pull back, it's like you will see it in your business.
Yeah.
That like consistency is so like vital to our business. So yeah, so that was like one of the things that I had to balance out, and that's why I was like, oh wait, because I was just kind of at first like anybody who was interested, I was like, yeah, cool, come on, and
right.
I was like, wait a minute, this is a lot.
Time to change that philosophy.
Yeah. So that's when it became like less about numbers for me. I mean, my initial goal was to always help people, because I know when I first got started, when I first got started in general, so I worked for the builder, and then when I went on my own, I was like kind of lost for a little bit, because I was like, okay, this is new territory, and I didn't really have anybody to lean on, and so I remember that feeling, and I was like, I want to help other agents who are feeling like that, but you also have to keep in mind that you have a business to run as well. So it's just kind of balancing those two things, and having a team that understands that, okay, I'm not here to just like hand you everything. Like you have to also, you have to work. You have to bring something to the table. So I'm going to give you the tools to fish. You got to go fish.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's kind of my mentality. There are some teams that will give, promise you leads and stuff like that. I don't usually find that those leads are the greatest leads, just depending on the amount of volume of leads that they are giving you. But what I found is a lot of agents get promised these things, and then they realize like, okay, I'm still not making any money. Why not?
Right.
And it's like, you still have to do the work. Like you can't just expect that you're going to get handed like these $1 million clients,
Yeah, no doubt. It makes a lot of sense. Yeah. What's the name of the team? Is there a team name?
Yes, it's SG Home Collection.
SG Home Collection.
Yep.
What does SG stand for?
Smith Glenn.
Smith Glenn. Okay.
Very original.
That makes sense.
But yeah, I just couldn't think of, so.
Now, weren't you Ashley Tamar too at one point?
That is my middle name.
Okay,
a lot of people
gotcha.
get confused. That's my personal Facebook. That is my middle name. And so a lot of people are like, who is this? And I'm like, it's just.
Every time I talk to you, there's a different last name that we're working with.
If you put Ashley Smith on Facebook, you're going to get 8 million.
Yeah, it's tough to find you. Exactly.
Yeah, so I've had Facebook since, 2006. I don't even know. So I just always went by my first and middle name because it was easier that way. But no. So, and then when I first got started in real estate, I had a blog, and it was Road to Realty. So a lot of people will see that as like my Instagram handle and things like that. That is like my baby. Like that's like my original brand, I would say, because when I was getting started, again, I would get so many questions like, well, how do you do this and how do you do that? So I had a blog where I would just talk about like my experience and getting my license and what I did next and how I, took my state test and all this stuff. So that's where the Road to Realty came from. And then it's still translated because I'm like, now I'm helping people on their road to realty.
Makes sense.
So,
but the brand now is SG Collective, you said?
Collection.
Yeah,
because you can't use realty in your name if you're not a broker.
Got it. Is that the next step for you?
I get asked that question a lot. I don't know. Because again, I know my strengths, I know my weaknesses, and I don't know if being a broker is going to give me the reward that I want for the amount of work that it requires.
Sure.
Because again, a lot of people just want to be a broker because they're like, I'm sick of splitting my commission, and I just, want to be a broker, and I want to be my own boss. And I'm like, yeah, but like, what value are you giving to your agents? Like,
right.
What is going to be your purpose? Like, I mean, unless you just want to work for yourself, but if you're going to be a broker that brings on other agents, I'm big on like, what are you going to give them, you know? Because
you got to start with that, I think. I mean, we talked about this yesterday, actually, on our, as you know, I think we run these monthly panels over at Whiskey Cake.
Yeah.
And our topic yesterday was about how to become a local legend. It was about branding. But where we really dove into was like, you have to identify first what you want your brand to be known for and to be about. And if it's not serviced and centered in service, right, about really, you want people when they see your brand or hear of your brand to think, and especially team members on your brand, that you're truly there, committed to their development and their service, and customers, same thing. Like it's about the right home for that individual client, not just what's going to make you the most commission. And it's just a mentality thing that you have to start with. It's that servant leadership mentality. And especially as a broker, I have to believe that it would be just as important, if not more, to start with that first.
I think it is like one of the most important things because again, it's like I know a lot of people who have gone that route just because of kind of these superficial reasons, and I just feel like there has to be something that you're offering these agents, or else you're going to invest money into bringing them on board, into training them, and then they're going to leave because they're going to be like, I'm not getting anything here.
Right.
X, Y, and Z broker is offering me this, and this. So if you don't have anything in mind, I would say, being a team leader is kind of, I think, the best of both worlds for me because I still have the support of my broker. I still have the systems in place for my broker. That stuff alone is expensive.
Sure.
I mean, investing in CRMs and platforms for your agents to be able to do their business is not cheap. And then it's also, you have to maintain that. And I still like selling a lot too. So I don't think that I would become a broker anytime soon. Mm-hmm. Maybe when I want to slow down a little bit,
Well, we could talk about that a little bit as the personal side, because I think people who might want to get to know you a little bit more. So as you mentioned earlier, you just you got married. You're two years ago now.
Well, we'll be 2 years in December. We got married New Year's Eve.
So about a year and a half now.
Yeah.
And I know we had you at one of our MVP socials, and we gave you like a framed gift, and you had your beautiful son Zion there playing around and having a good time. Yeah. And your husband is not in real estate, if I remember, right? He's involved in business though.
So he is self-employed. He does promotions, so he does like really cool events, concerts.
He's throwing the big parties out there.
Yeah, he gets to have all the fun. I'm like, I'm at work, and he's like, I'm at a concert.
What, he can't throw a little bash at one of your open houses or something and bring the traffic, right? I mean, come on now, support mama.
Right, exactly. So he has a fun job.
How old is Zion now?
So he'll be 5 in August.
Nice.
He is the best. I mean, that is like such a cool age. I mean, honestly, like, so far, every age has been great. I mean, I'm like counting the days until he's like a teenager. Hopefully, he's still my best friend then. But I just always remind him, I'm like, I'm your favorite, right? He loves me.
Do you want more children?
I do. Probably not many more, maybe one more. So, yeah, I mean, I think I've always wanted to be a mom. Yeah. Like, that was just one of the things. Like, even as a kid, I loved kids. Like, I love little kids. And so, yeah, I mean, I love it. It's super rewarding. What
do you guys like to do for fun? What keeps you busy?
Let's see. Right now, it's a lot of zoos and just like learning things, like hands-on kind of
science centers.
Experience. Yeah, like he loves that stuff, and I love watching him enjoy it. Mm-hmm. So we do a lot of that on the weekends, and just like social stuff. Birthday parties are just definitely mom life, right?
Right. Do you guys get to travel at all, or not much?
We don't travel much, and I think it's just more so like it's just a headache for me.
Right.
It's like getting everything together.
Believe me, I have 5 kids.
Oh yeah.
So I think since the last time we connected, I had one
you had
more
one
since.
More? I know. I saw that. Congratulations.
Yeah, we had a baby in January.
Oh wow.
But and we do like to travel. We still try to do a lot, but it's not easy when you have a family that size, for sure.
Yeah, I think once he gets like a little bit older, that'll definitely be something that's like on our list to do. I don't know. I think I'm a little bit spoiled because here is just kind of like vacation mode anyway. Right. So I'm like, let's just go to the beach, or let's just go here. So yeah, I kind of like to stay close to home. I'm one of those people, I kind of made my home my sanctuary. And so I like to be there when I can.
Very cool.
But yeah.
So, and I think if I remember, wasn't there an organization that you guys were also affiliated with?
Yeah. Zion's Den. So, our sneaker ball is usually in October, November. We haven't set a date for it yet this year. But every year we do a sneaker ball. So it's kind of like a formal event where you get to dress up, but then you get to wear sneakers. So it's
awesome.
Super comfy for the ladies.
And it's named after your son. I mean, it's like you can't be any cooler than that. Zion's Den.
Yeah. So we collect sneaker donations and then we give them out to kids for Christmas.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember we we were talking about doing a feature on that, but I don't think we've done it yet, have we?
We haven't done it
yeah,
yet.
We're going to have to do that. We have a section every month called Making a Difference
awesome.
in the Real Producer magazine. And so we try to spotlight specific causes.
Yeah.
And that would be an ideal one that we can definitely do a nice feature on. I think we'll have to connect on that.
Yes.
Yeah, that would be
sure.
cool. And you know Zion, it's a biblical name, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, very cool.
That was by design.
I wasn't sure, but I figured I'd ask, right? Why not? So a couple rapid fire things. These are just kind of some quick questions to kind of get let the audience get to know you a little bit more. So do you have a favorite book or author or maybe a seminar that you've attended that you feel like has made a big impact on you personally?
I mean, I've definitely read like the Rich Dad Poor Dad and what's another one? The Power of Two is a good book that I really like. Just talks about like teamwork and kind of servant leadership, that kind of thing. Most recently, I just reread The Bluest Eye by Toni Morrison. It's totally not in that realm of like business or, self-help, but it's kind of I believe it's a novel. I don't think it's based on a true story, but it kind of gives a perspective of a young Black girl growing up in America and kind of some of the challenges she faced with her self-image, because I think a lot of times as like African Americans, we don't always see ourselves in the best light in general society. I think like, certain standards of beauty and things like that are just not always in our favor. So that book explores that topic in a way that's just, it comes from the Black perspective.
Gotcha.
And so,
it's called The Bluest Eye?
The Bluest Eye by Toni
I haven't
Morrison.
heard it. Yeah.
So I read it years and years ago, and then we went on a road trip, actually. We went to Georgia. We went to Georgia for our cousin's high school graduation, and I was like in the car, like, hey, what do I do this 4-hour, 5-hour drive? So yeah, I read it again.
That's a good recommendation.
Yeah. So yeah.
Favorite food?
That's a tough one. I love crab legs.
Okay.
That is like one of my favorites.
Who doesn't? I mean, come on now.
I know, right?
Even just cracking them is fun.
I'm like, anybody who doesn't like crab legs, I'm like, what?
I just love the process,
Yeah. Snow crab legs are like my favorite thing. And randomly, I love peanut butter and jelly. Like,
wow, look at you. That's the kid of you, huh?
Yeah, like I literally.
That's never left. You've never grown out of that.
Eat peanut butter and jelly like probably 3 times a week. Like, it is really weird, but it's like one of my favorite late night snacks.
There you go. All right. Well, we all got our thing, so that makes sense. I don't even remember the last time I ever had a peanut butter and jelly, to be honest, but they were good. As a kid, I loved them.
The sweet and the carbs, I don't know. It's
Do you have a favorite movie or like TV show?
Favorite movie? Since it's back out, The Little Mermaid, like that was literally like my jam when I was a kid.
Nice.
And I just went to see
Were
the
you a
remake.
Disney princess?
I was definitely. I mean, I kind of think I went through every stage. I was like the super girly girl. I wore skirts every day. Then I was a tomboy for a few years, and I wore like baggy. That's when like the baggy shorts and like crisscross was in, and like the backwards clothing.
Sure.
Like that was my thing for like a little while. But yeah, no, The Little Mermaid was like one of my favorite. That was my favorite Disney character. And then we just saw the remake, and I took my son. That was his first time going like to the movie theaters. And at first he liked it. I think it was a little long for him. And then when Ursula came, it was like kind of scary. But then at the end, he was like, "It wasn't scary."
Has he been on the ride at Disney?
No.
Okay.
So I think we're gonna take him to Disney this year for his birthday.
Nice.
So yeah.
Our kids are spoiled. We have the annual pass, so they're there a lot, actually.
Oh, yeah. Well, he's a little bougie. He wants to go to the one in California. He wants to go to Disneyland because they have Radiator Springs.
Yes, I know. We just went there in March.
Yeah?
Yeah, we took a week. Was it cool? It was cool. It was neat. Okay. I mean, because our kids go to this one probably too much.
Yeah.
And they are used to it now.
Yeah.
But they've seen the one in California, and they know it's the original, and they've seen it on YouTube every now and again, so they've been wanting to go. And so, yeah, we took a week vacation and took them out to Disneyland. Nice. And that was one of their favorite things, was Radiator Springs and going on the Cars ride.
Yeah, he is obsessed with
neat.
cars. Like, that is like his thing. And even just like cars in general, but the movie Cars he loves, so he wants to go do that.
I have one of my sons who wants to go to the one in Tokyo. Talk
Oh,
about
wow.
bougie, right? He's like, Daddy, when are we going to go to Tokyo? I'm like, Tokyo?
Oh my gosh! Wow.
Yeah, I'm like, well, when you get older, maybe we'll figure it out.
Right,
You know?
just
Yes.
to think when I
he
was a
thinks
kid, it
Tokyo
was
was like across the street, though.
Yeah.
He doesn't realize it's like a 14-hour flight. When we went to California, he was like, Daddy, when are we going to get there? And I was
Oh,
like,
yeah.
and you want to go to Tokyo? I mean, come on now.
Yeah.
But he'll figure it out eventually. All right, we're going to end with what I would call our legacy question, right?
Okay.
So this is one of our ones to get you to think a little bit and get deep about what you would want to be known for. So obviously there comes a time where whether you're done with real estate or maybe you never will be, but eventually we start thinking about what do I want my legacy to be, right? And if you had to think through that a little bit, what do you think would be most important to you, Ashley, in terms of what you'd want to be remembered for? Not just even necessarily as an agent, even though you can say that, but just as a person. What do you think's most important to you? And when you think back, when you're sitting on the rocking chair one day?
I definitely want to be known as someone that helped people. I think that's one of the things that drives me the most in real estate is like to be able to help people into home ownership and to, grasp that dream. And so I think my legacy, I just want to be able to help as many people as possible. I definitely want to get into the development side of real estate. So hopefully that's what I'll be known for one day.
There you go. A little female developer boss, have your name on the building somewhere or something. Who knows?
Yeah. I mean, I would be interested
or the
in
SG Collective Collection Group.
Yeah. I'd be interested in like residential development. I would love to get into affordable housing. It's just, I don't know. I don't know why more. I mean, I know it's like a capitalistic society and, yada, yada, yada. People are out there to make money, but I just think there is a lot of opportunity there. And so.
Yeah, makes sense. So if anybody wants to reach out to you, maybe there's an agent who is looking at joining a team, loves some of the stuff that you talked about today, and would love to follow up and have a conversation with you. What's the best way to reach you?
The best way to reach me is via email. If you're looking for more information there, it's Ashley, ASHLEY, at road, ROAD, the number 2, realty.com.
Perfect. Ashley at roadtorealty.com. We'll put that on the screen and on the post as well. And it was great to have you here. I'm glad we got to dive into your story a little bit more. Yeah, this is fun. I always enjoy these conversations, especially when you can be real about it and be genuine like as you are. So we've always seemed to have a pretty good conversation when we connected. So I appreciate you being here. And for those of you who are checking out the episode, we always end with the same advice, which is to find one thing, right? Just one action step that you can take from our conversation today that you think can help propel you forward, whether that's in your business or even in your personal career. Maybe it's a book recommendation that Ashley mentioned. Maybe it's, investing in a CRM if that's not something you've done yet. Maybe you have to join a team and you're looking for certain qualities, and possibly it's even Ashley's team that you can connect with as well. But what's one action step, that way the time you invested in listening to this episode is going to make it worth it, that you can take to move forward and build some momentum in your career as well. We'll, of course, see you on the next episode of Tampa Bay Real Producers. So stay classy.